This is one of my favorite ways to raise chickens. Now, she didn't hatch any of these chicks. She's broody, and I put these chicks underneath her. Why do I love this so much? So I like to bring all the eggs that I want to hatch, that I can control, and bring them into the incubator. Well, when chickens lay eggs, they lay them typically in a giant pile. And when they're done in a giant pile, sometimes if you're not touching them, they could be, I don't know, like 30 eggs. And what happens is when they all hatch at the same time, the moms can step on them. There's just a lot that could go wrong. Once those eggs are brought inside of the incubator, I can control the whole situation, giving them the best, most optimal chance of hatching. Not all the time, even in an incubator, will all eggs hatch. There's lots of times that in an incubator, even in the most optimal environment, the eggs just, for some reason, they start developing, they start forming, and then they won't hatch. You can see inside of eggs like this one that just probably isn't going to hatch. I don't see any movement, but I do see growth. And an egg that has no growth at all looks a lot more like this. And like that one chicken egg that showed no signs of movement, you know, there's a slight possibility that this chicken could still hatch. However, we got 1 day left on that incubator because chickens have a 21-day incubation cycle. And in that 21 days, most of them will take, some don't, like this one. We're gonna wait it out. We're gonna give it 2 extra days afterwards. If not, the eggs really start to smell, they rot, and then in my experience, even if you try to help out the chicken inside just never made it. But you'll have that type of situation a whole lot more when you let the mom raise the chicken itself, because she either doesn't move them enough, didn't give them the proper sitting, moisture. There's a lot of different situations. So I found that the best way at hatching them to get the most optimal hatch rate and the quantity that I personally want is to bring them into the incubator. But that leaves the position of what to do once they're hatched, because I personally don't want to put them into a brooder, into a box or a bin and change out their bedding all the time, watch all of the things that you have to watch when it comes to baby chickens. It's kind of annoying to me. I don't want to have to deal with them all the time. So I'd way rather have the moms do it for me. Now I already have one hatched out. I was looking for the little baby. I couldn't find it somewhere around. I had 2 broody hens down to 1. So when I originally planned on this, I did it for the 2 broody hens. I'm a little overcrowded in there. So I will have to keep a lot of eye out on these chicks inside of here just to make sure that none of them are smothering each other. It's a delicate balance when you have a lot of chicks to make sure that they're not all crowding inside of a corner. It's not too cold right now, so I don't have to worry about them all getting enough heat at night because it's still in the high 70s at night. She has a little much. I know that from showing you. However, it's still my favorite way to do this. So, what to think about when you're doing this. When you go ahead and bring your baby chickens and you introduce them to a mom who hasn't hatched out the chickens themselves, sometimes she could peck at them. It gets a little bit confusing sometimes. She may be pecking at them just to push them under her. That's what some do. Some will take to that new mothership role pretty easily. Some will not. Some will peck at them and they don't want these new babies hiding underneath them. They would rather be sitting on the eggs and hatch them out themselves. When a chicken hatches out an egg, she'll start listening to those little pecks and chirps happening inside. And as she does so, once the baby pecks a little bit of hole, she'll know exactly where to peck the rest of that hole out. This will give them a better start and a better hatching cycle because she's already cracking the hole open for them. She's giving them a little bit better air and a little bit better time, making it a little bit easier to do so. So in my experience, if you can catch those eggs as they're starting to hatch and switch them out with some eggs that she's already sitting on, ones that are not going to be fertile or hatched, switch them out, put the eggs as they're about to hatch underneath her. She will then associate those with her eggs that she's been sitting on, and that transition of her trying to figure out of whether these are her babies or not isn't there. She can just accept them as her own. But when you do this anyway, you can see that she's already accepting all these babies. I did find her this morning on a new batch of eggs, but as soon as I moved her back over to the babies, she immediately took back to them. Now here are some things to look out for. Chickens are pretty vicious with each other. They're cannibalistic and they don't treat new babies pretty well. Most of the time the mom can watch out, but if they're in a position where these chicks can at any way be attacked by those new hens, especially in the first 3 days of life, I would watch out. Keep them separate and then start to slowly introduce them. Which is why in my case, I have separated them inside of their brooder boxes. The little chicks can't get out and they're separate from the other hens. Now raising them all in this situation like this also gives me another benefit. I don't ever have to teach them that this is their home because I free range a lot of my chickens. I don't put them inside of a run. So whenever I have to free range them and then teach them where their home is, if I've raised them inside of a little brooder box, then moved them slower to a new place, them finding their new housing situation with their new chickens sometimes is not the easiest. So doing it like this, where the mom is raising them in their spot, they're gonna know exactly what their home is every single time, and it makes it really easy. So give this a try. Let the hens raise the chickens for you. You don't have to do it all the time. Obviously you have to do this when your hen is broody, but give it a shot. Try to plan it out. If you know your hens are going to be broody, or even if you have one, start the incubation process in the house and then bring the chicks out to her or them when they're ready. And if you're curious about this chicken coop and how I built it and why I did it this way, check out this video right here. I'll see you on the next one.